Is being active a part of your day? If not, we can help. We're New Jersey Snap Ed, and we offer fun ways to help you do something active and healthy each day. For fun fitness ideas and activities, visit njsnap-ed.gov today. That's njsnap-ed.gov.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
All right, yeah, our roster looks great on paper. Whoop-de hell. All right. But at the end of the day, we better be a good team. And you start building that during this time of the year.
Get your sorry ass up! Get your sorry ass up! Doing a lot of talking with somebody that ain't do shit today. Doing a lot of talking.
Do you think you're better than Jarrell Revis is right now?
I'm better than you. My 24 years of life, I'm better at life than you.
Dave! Time to go to work!
I ain't 36. I ain't never seen you before, huh? Better go tell the coach you need some help. We gonna expose you, boy. All right, we coming at your ass.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Roundtable.
Let's go! Let's go!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast, proud members of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. You can find them at FTFPodNet on Twitter. You can find me, Matt Bruning, at SportsFanaticMB on Twitter. And you can find my co-host for the day, Mr. Dennis Bennett, at Culture_Coach on Twitter. We are just one of a ton of great podcasts associated with this network, some of which are Jim Day of FF Champs, Corey Parsons, and Dr. Roto from Sirius XM Radio, Bob Lung of the award-winning Fantasy Football Consistency Guide, Dwayne McFarland, Blake Sullivan, and a ton of great others. You can find all of us on FullTimeFantasy.com, your one-stop shop for all of your fantasy news, advice, and strategies. We are also excited to be partnering with ExpandTheBoxScore.com. You can find them at XTBoxScore on Twitter. They have some of the best stats in the industry, college football stats, NFL stats, and baseball stats. Basketball stats on the way. They already are pumping those out. College football stats are extremely hard to find if you want to get some of the best stats, including dominator rating and everything. They do team scrimmage yards. I mean, everything. It's ridiculous. You need to check them out. If you like the stuff that I post about college football players on Twitter, I get all of my information from their site, and it's just $15 a year for a full site subscription. It is ridiculous how cheap that is, and if you use our code ROUNDTABLE, you will get 10% off of that. Again, just $15 for an entire year. Best college football stats in the industry, really best stats in the industry. That is a steal among steals, and again, use our code ROUNDTABLE to get 10% off of that. Dennis is here, which you guys know what that means. We are breaking down all of Week 11. We will recap the UFC matchup that happened on Thursday Night Football, and some of the football that happened in that game is, unfortunately, that part is getting overshadowed by what happened. We'll then talk about all of the games for Week 11, and then a little bit of the pie bet that we jumped into last week and who we're picking this week. And as on our typical Friday shows, we've got Mr. Dennis Bennett with us. We're recording on a nice early Saturday morning for the both of us. Dennis, how was your week, and how'd your Friday go, and how is your Saturday morning going so far?
My Friday was I was kind of on a Matt Bruning schedule. I was up about 3:15 for work, and so it didn't break my heart too much that we weren't able to record last night. So spent some time hanging out with the family, and then got an early bedtime. So
very
nice and chipper, and back on schedule today.
Yeah, sounds like fun. That was interesting game Thursday, which I know we're both looking forward to talking about. I guess. I mean, I want to talk more about the game, but we'll definitely talk about the UFC match that broke out in there as well. So let's just go ahead and jump right in that and get that taken care of.
Prepare for glory!
I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. Do you got your popcorn ready? I came out the womb, I was ready.
And he's hit the end zone for an unbelievable touchdown.
I would be honored if you played football for this team.
Throw it up above his head. They can't jump at me. Golly. Oh, they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
Who can make a play? I can. Who can make a play? I can.
I guess let's just start with the fight to get it out of the way, because I really don't want to keep talking about it. I feel like obviously yesterday pretty much everyone and their mothers were talking about that stuff. So I'll go ahead and give my opinion first, and I'll let you talk about whatever you want to on that, and then we'll jump in and just break down the game. For me, it was obviously, I agree with what Baker said is inexcusable, what Myles Garrett did. I mean, we've seen, everybody's saying they've never seen anything like this. There have been instances of this. Now, nobody actually connecting with swinging a helmet, but I don't remember what the player's name was I think it was like 6 years ago, maybe. A defensive player
Antonio Smith and Richie Incognito.
Exactly. Yeah, so he almost hit Incognito. Now, again, he didn't connect, so maybe that's the difference here. I know a lot of people are probably going to say something about this. I really don't like the fact that it seems like Mason Rudolph is getting a complete pass here, because I do think that he instigated it. A lot of it, he stuck his hands in and tried to rip Garrett's helmet off as well. Now, that does not mean you should get hit in the head with your helmet, but I do think Rudolph should have gotten a little bit more suspension as well. Outside of that, I mean, I don't think that the NFL got it wrong. They suspended Garrett for the rest of the year. That sucks as a Browns fan, but he deserved it. Myles Garrett, I'm not going to lie, maybe this will get me some flack as well. He's still one of my favorite players because of how talented he is. It was a stupid move. I don't like the talk of everybody saying he needs to be kicked out of the league, because it's something we've both talked about. We've watched women and children getting beat and injured and just all kinds of stuff happen by other players, and they usually get, if anything, any kind of suspension, and then we're all okay with them being back in the league. So I think a lot of this, I'll use Tyreek Hill as an example. Once he came back, a lot of fantasy players were lauding him. So is it just because you don't have Myles Garrett in an IDP league that you're not happy about it? Like, I think the way a lot of people are handing this is very, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on. What Garrett did was wrong. He deserves to be suspended for the entire year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets suspended for some games next year as well, but he deserves to be back on the field. I understand what he did was wrong, and he could have seriously injured Rudolph had he connected with him in any other way with that helmet. People make mistakes. If he does it again, he should be out of the league for good, but he does deserve a second chance in my opinion. Your thoughts on everything that went down Thursday night?
Yeah, I'm not sure that Rudolph is necessarily getting a pass. It's hard to talk about the little thing when the big thing was so big and glaring. It really, when you talk about what Rudolph did, most people perceive it as making an excuse for Garrett's behavior.
Yeah,
and there isn't an excuse for that. You just can't behave that way. But you got big guys playing a violent game, and all right, so if I'm in a bar and this big dude walks past me and takes my hat, and if I charge him, do I expect he's just going to give me my hat back, or do I expect he's probably going to stick a big mid out there and pop me in the face?
Yeah.
Probably not the greatest analogy, but it's not. Getting hit with the helmet isn't Rudolph's fault. That was Garrett.
Yeah.
He was engaged with DeCastro and fighting that off, and he just reacted. And there's a book out there called "When Good People Do Bad Things." I haven't read it. I posted it yesterday, sort of half jokingly, that some people might want to dip into it this weekend, mostly based on its title. But Garrett was wrong. I don't think his suspension should go into next year. I don't think he should be banned from the league. I do think suspending him for the rest of this year is a sufficient punishment. They keep posting the hit on Trevor Siemian. I don't, that was, maybe it was borderline, but everybody wants to call it a blatantly late hit. There are things, continuation plays happen all the time, and it's easy to say, well, they should have pulled off, or they should have been able to stop. The targeting by Randall, it looked bad, but also we see a lot of times that the offensive players, when they're getting ready for contact, they duck down. The defensive player will be in position, and then the offensive player ducks to prepare for impact, and now their helmet is in the way, and that's still the defender's fault. It just there's a lot of things that happen in the game that, yes, you have to call the penalty on the way it looks. I don't know that Randall was necessarily targeting Deontay Johnson. The optics of it were terrible, especially when he took his helmet off and he's bleeding from his ear. It was a violent game, and I suspect in 2 weeks it could get out of hand pretty quickly. So whoever's refereeing that game in 2 weeks in Pittsburgh, they're going to need to be on their P's and Q's.
I agree with they'll have to be on their P's and Q's. I don't know if it will, just because a lot of the stuff that kind of came out really seemed to be targeted toward Garrett. I don't think anybody had an issue with the Randall hit. It did not look like he had intent. He even looked like he was pretty upset about it after the fact. It was just, unfortunately, like you just said, it's one of those things where, yes, in slow motion, it looks like he has intent, because everything in slow motion looks like that. You can't base it on slow motion, which is kind of why I hate the targeting stuff in college football, because a lot of time that stuff is happening in a split second. And when Deontay Johnson is moving, he's not doing it on purpose, but he's changing his angle. Demarius Randall's already coming in with his angle set, and you can't pull up at the last second. You just can't. This dude's going full speed to try and get Deontay Johnson. So I don't think that was a dirty play at all. I don't think a lot of people, I haven't seen many people talking about it as a dirty play, to be honest. So I don't know if people are. I mean, they're probably just latching on to what happened with Garrett. I'm with you on the Trevor Siemian thing. I saw that everywhere. There was someone who posted Myles Garrett's this really dirty player, and I do think he's going to have that moniker on him now after doing that, and that's on him. He's going to be the one who has to try and prove that he's not a dirty player. I personally don't think he is. I know they did post one thing that I agree with. He did try and punch Delaney Walker in week 1. He did do that. Okay, so maybe it was a frustration thing. I get that. You just came out in week 1 and maybe you weren't thinking it, but everybody was saying Browns are the AFC North division winners, and then you guys just come in and get spanked in game 1 of the new season. Maybe it was a little bit of frustration there. But the Trevor Siemian play, I mean, come on. Like, if it was any other person who did that, nobody would be talking about it as a dirty play. Well, did it suck? Yes. No one wants to see Trevor Siemian get knocked out of the game like that, but it's not like Myles Garrett went in low on him and took his knee out or anything like that. He hit him. Was it a tad bit late? Yes. Okay. It happens. We've seen it all year long. I mean, you've probably got, at least 2 roughing the passer calls a game out in the NFL nowadays like that. To me, you cannot throw that in there one bit. So I'm with you on that. I hope that the game in 2 weeks isn't at all bad. Like, really, you got Pouncey won't be there. The only player who was involved in all that's going to be there is Ogunjobi, because he only got the 1 game suspension, so he misses this week against the Dolphins. He'll be back for the Steelers game. I would think everything would be calm and cool. Well, I mean, I guess you got Rudolph there too, but I don't think the Browns are going to try and go after Rudolph for anything. I would assume they won't. I hope they don't. I hope, like they do in I think it's the NBA. No, baseball. Baseball. If 2 teams have bad blood and everything, they'll talk to him beforehand. Like, look, this is your warning. You do anything, you're immediately ejected. I hope that the NFL referees do something like that and be like, look, we understand that what happened 2 weeks was bad. The main players in the party are out of here now. Let's just play football and we'll see what happens. Hopefully that is what happens. And they did actually play a football game on Thursday night, and the Browns came away with a huge win. It wasn't pretty on the offensive side. The defense played really good, or maybe it was Pittsburgh's offense played really bad, but Baker comes through with 30 points in this one, gets you a couple touchdowns, which was nice to see. Did kind of miss Odell right there at the beginning of the game for another touchdown, but gets you 2 touchdowns, 193 yards, 17 of 32, gets you a rushing touchdown as well. Nick Chubb continues to have a really good year, 92 yards on 27 carries to come in with 11.8 points. Jarvis Landry continues to lead the wide receivers with 14 points, 43 yards, 4 catches, and a touchdown. Odell, 60 yards on 4 catches. Again, should have had a touchdown. 10 points in this one. And then Kareem Hunt, who now has outscored Nick Chubb 2 weeks in a row. Just 12 yards on 6 carries, but gets 46 yards on 6 catches. Me and Matt kind of talked about it a little bit last week. I said that Jarvis Landry was the guy to play. just based on the matchups. I still think you can play Odell, but he's more of a flex option. But what about Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb for you? Matt said that he was a little bit worried about the way they use Kareem Hunt in week 1. We've now had 2-game sample size. What are your thoughts on the Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb split?
Well, I think Kareem Hunt is what everybody wants Duke Johnson to be.
Yeah.
It's Kareem Hunt can play some football. He's an exceptional pass catcher, exceptional in all phases of the game. I don't think Hunt has the breakaway speed that Chubb has. He doesn't have the power that Chubb has. I think they are an extremely high level pair of complementary backs, and they have a significant portion of overlap in what they do. So putting one or the other in the game doesn't create a tell for your offense, to use a poker term.
Right.
If you have Hunt in there, you can run just as easily as you can throw. And if you have Chubb in there, while they don't throw it to Chubb as much, he's a capable pass catcher. And I think it's as a Chubb owner, I think it's a little bit frustrating because you do want to have your stud running back get all of the touches.
Yeah.
But as a football fan and a Cleveland Browns fan, I also want my team to win. And, the two of them together give the team a better chance to win. So Dontrell Hilliard is not going to become a thing.
Thank God for that.
So I like it from a football standpoint. I think it might, it's going to push Chubb from being potentially a top 5 to 8 back, probably down to a 10 to 15 back, because it is going to take some touches away from him. Hunt is going to be consistently flex worthy. I don't think Hunt is going to outscore Chubb a lot. He only outscored him by what? 2 points, 3 points.
Both weeks it's been like last week I think it was by a point, and then this week 2 points. Or no, actually 1 point again.
And it's the PPR points.
Yeah.
It isn't yardage. So in a PPR, do you maybe slide Chubb down further than you do in a half point or in a standard? Yeah, you do. You have to adjust accordingly because Hunt is going to get those pass catching attempts. He's getting the targets. Mm-hmm. So I like Hunt. As somebody who has shares of both players, I'm kind of hoping Hunt gets an opportunity to go somewhere where he can be the man, because we've seen what he can do when he's the man. And while it makes the Browns a better team, and yes, I'd love to win, I think that from a fantasy perspective, I wouldn't mind seeing there be a little bit of a breakup of their romance.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'll just say the same thing I told Matt. I'm not that worried about it. I still think Chubb, he's clearly out carrying Hunt. And it does suck that he's losing out on those pass catching plays now, because obviously we saw a lot of that last year really kind of helped him. Had a lot of good runs last year, but they had some really good plays in the receiving game. So that does limit his opportunities to score. And I do think that's where the biggest part is going to come from him now, is that he's got to score. We've seen that the Browns really are struggling to score in the red zone here lately. Obviously, as someone who owns Chubb, I know Baker in a lot of leagues as well. I personally would have loved to see Chubb get that rushing touchdown Thursday night, not Baker. Yeah. Just to kind of get him back in the red zone. How about
when we're down inside, say, the 5-yard line?
Yeah.
How about instead of bringing in 3 tight ends, that we bring in 3 wide receivers and spread that defense out so there's some room for Chubb to actually get in the end zone?
Well, that's the same thing I told Matt actually on the podcast last week, because he was asking what happened and why, and I was like, to me, I'm right there with you. They put everybody there, and then the defense knows you're just going to run the ball, and it doesn't matter how you could have the best offensive line in the game. If they got all their defenders coming down at you, you're likely not going to be able to score. So I'm with you on that 100%. Like I said, I would have loved to see Chubb get in there. I still think Chubb's got the I think he still has a chance to finish top 12 because I don't know how many people are paying attention to this. But Chubb's actually third right now in the league in rushing. Like, he's having a really good year, and I think that continues. I mean, it's crazy, too, to say that because as I know you watch the Browns games as I do, they don't even run Chubb that much. They need to run him more. So to me, the fact that he's up there, if he starts scoring some touchdowns here in the last couple weeks, which again we've talked about, or not me and you, because we haven't had. We usually are previewing the games where me and Matt have looked further ahead in some instances. The Browns have a really cake schedule going forward here. They're about to play a lot of teams that give up a ton of yards on the ground, including the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and the Bengals. The Bengals twice. So Chubb has a really good shot here to not just put up yards, but possibly score touchdowns. If he does that, I still think he's good to go. I'm with you on Hunt. He's proven he is at least a flex play, if not better, every single week. Because if he scores you a touchdown, he's jumping up into that middle tier RB2 range all of a sudden. So I think they're both playable. I'm not that worried as Chubb, and I'm with you again on the Hunt. If Hunt moves on, Chubb is going to be maybe my one suggestion, I guess, if you're in a dynasty league, if you can, maybe if you've got someone panicking on Chubb, buy low on him now. Because I think once Hunt does move on, because I do think he will, Chubb is going to be a absolute stud in this backfield if Freddie Kitchens can get out of his own way and stop playing Dontrell Hilliard. On Pittsburgh's side, we didn't see much out of them. A lot of injuries for Pittsburgh last night. Juju goes down with a concussion. James Conner comes in, re-injures the shoulder. He's back out. I think as long as he's out, Jalen Samuels is a good play. He gets you 15.5 points in this one. Another good game for him. 26 yards on 5 carries, but does add 49 yards on 3 catches. And then really just James Washington, who had to step up with Deontay Johnson going out as well. 49 yards on 3 catches to come in with 7.9 points. Rudolph, 17 points in this one, going 23 of 44, 221 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. What are you... Any thoughts, concerns, anything with the Pittsburgh offense? I mean, I feel like Juju's kind of moved down into flex-worthy play, unfortunately, ever since Big Ben's gone out. Connor... I would not be surprised if he does. Well, he will play again, I guess, because Pittsburgh's in the playoff race. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play next week with that shoulder injury. So Samuels is good to fire up. But what are your thoughts on Pittsburgh?
Well, I think a lot of Rudolph's potential success depends on the Steelers being able to run the football. And with Connor out, they're not as effective running the football. Samuels isn't a great. He's a great pass catching back, but he's not good. He's not terribly effective running the ball. I don't know if Benny Snell is going to be the answer with Connor out. If Snell can get healthy, Snell does have sort of that patient style like Lev Bell had, and so maybe he'll be able to be effective. Snell's not super athletic. He's not fast, but in the NFL, you don't have to be either one of those to be an effective running back, especially when you've got a pretty solid offensive line. So for the Steelers, Rudolph's success in the passing game is going to depend on their ability to run the ball. If not, then you're looking at another, 15-target game for Jalen Samuels on checkdowns and short routes. That's tough. That 17 points for Rudolph, was that -2 for interceptions as well? Or was that just straight based on yardage and stuff?
That was not when I look at the points, it's not no negatives for interceptions. So obviously he had a horrible day for the negative interception day, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, even if it did, then you'd add 8 more points to that total. 4 interceptions, even bad quarterbacks don't have a lot of 4 interception games.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would suspect that if he continues to struggle, though, we might see a little bit more Duck Hodges down the stretch.
That would be very interesting, especially someone who owns a couple shares of Mason Rudolph. That would actually suck. All right, let's go ahead.
It does look like Washington has started to push his way back up over Deontay Johnson. I think the two of them are starting to really establish that there's going to be a battle. Washington didn't just roll over and let Johnson take that number 2 spot.
True.
He's starting to play well.
Yeah, and I would imagine he's going to get a chance to keep being the top dog because you mentioned earlier with the blood coming out of Deontay Johnson's ear, it's easy to assume he has all concussions are serious, but that he could be held out for a while. So if that is possible, Washington's going to get more and more time as the 1 or 2 because we also don't know when Juju will be coming back as well. All right, now we'll jump in and we will preview the rest of Week 11.
We eating all day, bro. I'm hitting you every time. Every time you come this way, I'm going to hit you. I'm not going to be able to do that. You don't want no problems, bro. You are my boy. I'm a man. It's about to get ugly. I want to score. Yeah. You only talk so much. It's time to do now. Now just a good old-fashioned rear end whipping. To the house, baby. I'm in a league of my own. They ain't ready for me. Are you tired? Are you tired? Let's go. Good game.
Game previews. All right, so we're going to kick off the Week 11 previews with the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers, an NFC South matchup here that might actually be an interesting game with what we saw out of the Falcons last week against the Saints. So Carolina is getting 4.5 points in this one and the 50.5% chance to win this game. On the Panthers side here, they are going up against a very bad passing defense, but a middle-of-the-pack rush defense. Rush defense 17, passing 1. So CMC and Moore, we know are the guys here. You know, you talked about it, gave you a lot of props. I think it was 2 weeks ago on the Monday pod with Matt. You were talking about how DJ Moore was going to have a better game than Samuel. I wasn't kind of sure. Maybe it was the other way. I don't remember, but you called it right. You called it right on the money with those two guys. And Moore really has seemed to... yeah, you are. You are very good like that. Moore has definitely looked like he has stepped up and become the one here, at least with Kyle Allen. So you know you're playing those two, but what about Samuel? Where do you kind of rank him? And again, a really good matchup for him this week against the Falcons.
Well, I think Samuel is a consistent flex-worthy play. He gets if you buy the air yards model as a predictor of coming success, then you should be buying all the Samuel you can get because he's like top 3 in the NFL in air yards.
Okay.
It's just not quite translating yet. So at some point Allen is going to start hitting him. He's going to start reeling those in, and he's going to start breaking off those big chunks and long touchdowns. I think it was Ian Hartitz that posted on Twitter yesterday or the day before. Said DJ Moore is the better wide receiver of the two, but Curtis Samuel is the better football player.
Interesting.
Which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition of the two. You know, Samuel can do a lot of things. You know, he played some running back when he was at Ohio State. I think him and Samuel and Moore make a nice pair. They're both very explosive.
Yeah.
Moore does do a little more of the intermediate stuff, and obviously the closer to the line of scrimmage you are, the higher potential for completions, the percentage rates go up. But Samuel, he's fast. He's a good wide receiver. He doesn't quite have the technical skill that Moore does, but he's come a long, long way since he's been in the NFL. So I'm very comfortable starting Moore at maybe a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, and Samuel is a wide receiver 3 in flex.
Okay.
But Samuel does have that upside.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We saw him have a beautiful touchdown grab a couple of weeks ago as well. On the Falcons side here, so the Panthers are pretty much the opposite. They have giving up the 18th most in the passing game, but 3rd in the rushing game. So they are just getting killed on the ground. Unfortunately, Devontae Freeman is out of this one, so that likely means it's Brian Hill time. I would assume at least he will be the running back. We'll get your opinion on him real quick. As we both know, you're going to play Julio, so we'll just go ahead and throw that out there. So my questions for you, we know no Austin Hooper. We know no Devonta Freeman. Brian Hill and possibly Calvin Ridley to step up with Austin Hooper out. What are your thoughts on Atlanta?
Well, if you look at the target tower, it's Julio, it's Ridley. I'm not sure who's their tight end. Luke Stocker?
Yes.
No, he's a blocking tight end. So it isn't much. So Hill is going to get some targets. The running back is going to be Hill, and Quadri Allison is finally going to get a shot. So it's I'm excited to see what Quadri does. As you know, I've been a big fan of his for a long time.
Yes.
So hopefully they work. They're able to complement. But from a target perspective, it's Samuel it's Julio and Ridley, and then Russell Gage. You know, it could be one of those games where Gage or Justin, is Justin Hardy still there? I don't even know who their fourth is. I know Marvin Hall is gone. It could be one of those games where whoever that third or fourth wide receiver is steps up and becomes relevant for a game. I like Julio and Ridley to combine for 20 plus targets.
Yes, Justin Hardy is still there. I would imagine it would be him or Russell Gage, as you were just talking about, because the other guys, I'm going to be honest, I've never even heard of, and Christian Blake and Olamide Zacchaeus. I couldn't even tell.
Yeah, I've got some shares of Olamide Zacharias or whatever it is.
There we
Zacchaeus.
go. Zacchaeus, yeah. Okay. All right, who are you picking to win this one, the Falcons or the Panthers?
Oh, I'm rolling the Panthers.
As am I. The next one I think is actually going to be a very interesting game as well. Wish Matt Stafford was playing in it. I think it'd be a whole lot more interesting. Cowboys and the Lions. The Cowboys are getting 6.5 points in this one, and they are given the 68% chance to win this game. Cowboys defense has been pretty much phenomenal this year. They've got 15th against the rush, 31st against the pass. So you are not doing almost anything in the passing game against them. And again, I think if Stafford would be there, these guys would have a better chance. Jeff Driscoll didn't look horrible last week, but he also did not look great. He's just kind of a mediocre quarterback, which is fine as a backup. For me, and I know these are your Detroit Lions, so you can tell me what you think, but I think Kenny Golladay is the only play for me. I think he still has a chance to score. We saw him score with Driscoll, but I'd be worried about everybody else. What are your thoughts on Detroit and their matchup against a good Dallas defense?
Well, it's going to be a tough game to be a Lions fan. But that being said, the Cowboys are going to probably put up some points, so that means Detroit they're going to have to do two things. They're going to have to try to run the ball effectively to shorten the clock, and if they fall behind, then they're going to have to start throwing with Driscoll. Driscoll doesn't have a great arm. He's a bounce around backup for a reason. So the sleeper, I think, is Danny Amendola. So who's the Cowboy slot corner? You remember off the top of your head?
I don't. I'm the only guys that I've
probably a reason we don't remember.
Yeah, a ton of attention to is obviously Awuzie and
Jones.
Jones. Yeah, they both play on the outside. Who is that plays in? Because I know it's not, because the other guy they've got that's really good is Heath. I don't remember, but, no, Woods.
Safety. Maybe he's going to move up. I don't think Heath can stay with Amendola's quickness, though. So potentially, Amendola could be in for one of those, 9 catches for 79 yards kind of games. Not that I want to bank my pie bet on Danny Amendola.
Right.
It's certainly not the way I'm going. Golladay is showing that he's a stud. They're going to have to take some shots with him and try to get him the ball. Marvin Jones too, but Jones doesn't seem to ever quite hit that efficiency level that you'd like to see from him. Jones will have some of those days where, he catches everything, and then he'll have some days where, he can't catch anything.
Yeah.
Golladay, he's just got that big body. I think he's going to match up good. With probably, I think Jones is the bigger of the two cornerbacks, so maybe they match him up with Golladay. It's going to probably be a tough game, especially since the Lions don't really have a rushing game. It'll be interesting to see what Matt Patricia's game plan is and Darrell Bevell's game plan is, but I don't know that I'd be comfortable throwing out anybody but Golladay.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. On Dallas's side, I'm actually not sure that they're in for a huge day here. I mean, the Lions defense really has kind of struggled here over the past couple weeks, dropping down to second most points against the rush, 13th against the pass. So I think Zeke is in for a big day here. And for me, it's more Gallup and Cobb in this one. I do think that this is finally, me and Matt have talked about it, Amari Cooper has been an absolute stud so far this season, and it does hurt me to admit that, but he has been phenomenal. But I think this is that first matchup, and I've talked about it for the past couple weeks now, that the Cowboys come in with a couple really good secondaries here in the next couple weeks. And I do think Darius Slay has a chance to shut down Cooper. Now, I don't think he's going to completely shut him out, but I'm not expecting such a big game out of him like he's produced the past couple weeks. So you're still playing him because he does have that chance to just score that touchdown is going to make your day for you. But I wouldn't expect a huge day out of him. I think they're going to lean more on Zeke, and I think with the matchup of Slay on Cooper, it's going to be more of a Gallup day. What about you? What are your thoughts on Dallas here in this one?
Well, I think if you have Cooper, you throw him out and you expect him to be a wide receiver one. Sometimes he does come up small, but he's virtually matchup proof, and he's a big guy that runs great routes and he's fast. And while Darius Slay is or was a great cornerback, I don't know that he's playing consistently at that level this year. I think you play Cooper and you expect he's going to, have a good week. I do like Gallup. I actually just tried to pull off a trade where I got some draft picks and Melvin Gordon back, or gave Melvin Gordon and got Gallup and some draft picks back. But my trade partner went with a shittier deal, in my opinion. But anyways, he just didn't want to give up the amount of draft picks I wanted for Melvin Gordon. I love Gallup. I think, the Amari Cooper contract situation makes me kind of want to get Gallup on my teams. I think if Cooper leaves, Gallup he's taken a step this year, and I think he's shown that if he's healthy, he's ready to take that step up to be a team's number one. I think him and Cooper make a very formidable wide receiver 1-2 punch. And so I don't hesitate one bit with Gallup, and I don't think Dak does either. Mm-hmm. So he has confidence in all three of those wide receivers. Yeah. I agree with you that it's probably going to be a Zeke day just because they're going to be able to run the ball pretty effectively. Snacks Harrison hasn't quite brought the run stopping prowess this year that he did last year when he first came over. Uh-huh. But then again, you end up with teams playing over their head, and Matt Patricia is starting to develop that game planning type of reputation. I think Patricia's done a really good job this year with the Lions, and for some of the losses they've had that have had Lions fans doing a lot of hand-wringing, I like the direction that Patricia has taken the team.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. Me and Matt talked about it on Monday's podcast. I think really they could have had at least 2 games they should have won. I think they should have beaten the Chiefs, and then they should have beaten Arizona as well. So they could very easily be sitting at 5-5 right now and in the race for a wild card spot in the NFC. So Detroit is not at all a pushover. Like I said, I think the biggest factor in this one is not having Matt Stafford, because I honestly think, and I'd love to get your opinion on this real quick before we pick the game. I honestly think with what we saw out of Jeff Driscoll last week, again, I understand Jeff Driscoll's not Matt Stafford, but with the way this offense was humming, I think you could have made arguments for Matt Stafford being up there in the MVP conversation with Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument, but it's kind of like the Heisman voting. It's sort of more of a regional argument. So if you get up around the upper Midwest there, I think then you start to say, oh, hey, Matt Stafford should be in the conversation, but you get down in Georgia and Texas and whatnot, and they're like, "What are you talking about, fool?" So,
all right, I assume you're picking Dallas to win this one.
I am, unfortunately,
as am I. Next up, you got the Jags and the Colts. The Colts are getting 2.5 points in this one and are being given the 56% chance to win this game. For the Colts, the Jaguars, 16th most points against the rush, 21st against the pass. So really not a great matchup for either sides of the ball here. We do know Brissett is back in this one, but everybody on this team is beat up. No Paris Campbell. I don't know if people have seen the picture. You posted it in one of our chats yesterday. His hand just looks just messed up. I honestly feel bad for the kid. We know that
it looked like a football.
Yeah, exactly. T.Y. Hilton is also out, so you're leaning on Zach Pascal. Devin Funchess is back, so that might be an interesting play, but we know Jack Doyle is likely going to miss as well. So are you starting anybody?
Funchess going to be active?
I don't know. Let me look really quick. Are you willing to start anybody for Indianapolis?
Well, I'm definitely starting Marlon Mack, but from the wide receiver position, I think Pascal has shown that he's a reliable target, probably in the wide receiver 3 flex range. You know, he just sort of gets it done in a rather pedestrian fashion. I think, I had a trade offer come across my desk a couple days ago, a 3rd-round pick for Cole Beasley on a team that I have some pretty high level talent, and I have Devin Funchess and John Ross getting ready to come off IR, and I thought to myself, I'd rather have a 3rd-round pick next year than Cole Beasley if I have these two guys coming off IR to be my. Now I've lost Brandon Cooks and Sterling Shepard, so Ross and Funchess would probably be in my wide receiver 3 or 4 range on that team now.
Uh-huh.
But I'd rather have the pick in Beasley and have Funchess. I think when Funchess comes off of IR, he's going to move right up to that top target with the Colts.
Yeah.
So, volume is king in fantasy. Now, granted, they've got Marlon Mack, and so they're going to try to run the ball whenever they can run the ball. But I think Funchess is going to slide right in, and with T.Y. Hilton out down the stretch, they get Hilton back, they get Funchess back. The Colts could be kind of a sneaky threat down the stretch.
Don't I know it? I've been talking about him since the Andrew Luck news. I did not think that they would take that big of a step back having Brissett there. Funchess looks like, from what I just read, that he's probably at least a week or 2 away still, that they can activate him, but he's not fully cleared practice yet just due to the shoulder. So we will not see him this weekend against the Jaguars. On the Jaguars side, the Colts are really good on defense. 27th against the rush, 24th most points against the pass. So bad matchups all around as well for the Jaguars. We got Nick Foles coming back, his first game back since week 1 and injuring that throwing shoulder. I still think Leonard Fournette is in your lineup. We've seen he is a top 12 running back this year. I love that Fournette has finally kind of come through on his value. But what about the wide receivers? I know you're a big Dede Westbrook guy. For me, I think it would be the Chark attack is the only guy I would feel comfortable playing. He is their one. And I do think that even though most of his stuff has come with Gardner Minshew now, he did get that touchdown pass from Nick Foles in week 1. Foles was targeting him a little bit before he got knocked out and injured. You willing to play anybody from the wide receiver core for the Jags?
I am willing to play Westbrook. Okay. While Foles did target Chark with that touchdown, he really targets Westbrook. So I'm comfortable starting Westbrook. I do think that it's one of those games where, or one of those teams where, you can have Dede with 7 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown, and Chark with 3 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown. And when you look at the fantasy points at the end of the day, they're like within a half a point of each other, but because one's getting a ton of yards, it makes up for the one who's getting the higher amount of targets.
Right.
But I do think that it's a Leonard Fournette game. They have confidence in Fournette. Fournette has confidence that he can run the ball. If Fournette was getting any kind of play when they got inside the 5-yard line and scored a touchdown here and there, I don't think there would be any real conversation about him being a top 5 back. But he's just not getting in the end zone.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, and I know this is going to be crazy to say, if he was getting touchdowns as often as they're getting in the red zone to go along with the passing work and everything he's done, I think he would be sitting at 3 right now. I mean, he's not that far behind. He's about 60 points behind Aaron Jones, who's sitting at 3 right now. I don't know. I wouldn't put him with Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook, who are both sitting over 200, which is just ridiculous to begin with. But I wouldn't put him up there in that category, but I could easily see him being right up there with Aaron Jones had he been scoring some touchdowns, especially with the amount of passing work he's been getting. It's just been, if anybody bought low on him this year, it has really, really worked out for you. Who are you picking to win this one, the Jaguars or the Colts?
I am going to go with the Jags.
That is who I picked as well. Mostly did that because I was hoping I need the Colts to lose so the Browns could possibly make the playoffs. So I think those hopes are kind of gone now with everything that happened Thursday. Next up, we've got a game that I don't think many will be watching, and that is between the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. The Bills here are getting 6.5 points and being given the 64% chance to win this game. Starting on the Dolphins side here, Bills are giving up the 10th most points against the rush, 30th against the pass. I don't think you can start anybody on Miami. Do you disagree with that?
You know, it's a dicey situation. Balaj gets the volume, but we saw what he did with what did he have, 22 carries for 47 yards?
Yeah.
So, in my eyes, he met expectation there.
Yeah.
So, losing Preston Williams, I think Devontae Parker is somebody you can start.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he's going to be going up against Tre'Davious White mostly, but he's the number one receiver in that offense now. He's been healthy, I think, and Fitzpatrick, he gives no fucks. He'll throw the ball. It doesn't matter if you're covered or not.
That is very true.
And so it's just going to come down to is Parker going to be dog enough to fight through the hand fighting and the bodying up that Tre'Davious White's going to be doing to be able to just concentrate and catch the ball.
Yeah,
I think there'll be some opportunity there. I'm not even sure who's going on the other side across. Is it Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant? Is Gesicki gonna become a thing?
That was the one person.
Good game a couple weeks ago, and then he kind of disappeared last week.
Yeah, he's the one that maybe I would feel comfortable starting, and that's just because of how weak tight end is. Maybe throw a flyer on him because with Tre'Davious White being on Parker, you are right. Fitz is going to throw it whether you're open or not, so I guess that may not matter. But if he does decide to check down if Parker's covered by White, Gesicki's be the only person that I might be willing to throw in. I think that's really, you've got to be desperate to throw him in there, and that's just my opinion. I don't expect them to even come close to winning this game, so I would not play anybody in there. On the Bills side, though, the Dolphins, they've been giving up fantasy points galore to everybody. 5th most points against the rush, 10th most against the pass. So I think Singletary's in for a bounce-back game here. Everybody, including myself, I thought he was going to have a really good game last week against the Browns with their leaky rush defense. He was not able to do much. I think he bounces back here. And I think John Brown's in for a big game as well in this one. What are your thoughts on the Bills' offense?
Well, I'm sad. Or at least my shares of Frank Gore are sad that the transition to Devin Singletary is occurring.
Yeah.
I was hoping we could make it through the year because I have a couple teams where Gore is like my RB 3 or 4, and so that usually puts him in consideration for flex play, but looks like those times are passing. Now I do have a couple shares of Singletary, so I guess I can always take solace in that. They just aren't on the teams where I have Gore. Singletary's starting to look good. He's starting to take that role, and starting him is against the Dolphins is a no-brainer. I think Allen's going to ball out. He's going to have, he's never going to have a consistently high completion percentage, but the Dolphins are doing what the Dolphins are doing this year.
Yeah.
So let's. You roll your guys out against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are playing hard. honestly, if you put the Dolphins up versus say the Bengals, the Dolphins, for as bleak as it looked in weeks 1, 2, and 3, Flores has those guys out there playing hard. Where it doesn't seem like you can always say that about Taylor and the Bengals. I think they're starting to come around in Cincinnati a little bit. You're seeing some more effort as I think guys are realizing that, hey, we have to, we're playing for next year, and by playing for next year, they're starting to realize I'm playing for a team, a job on another team, so I better make it look like I'm interested. I say roll your Bills out. John Brown, Cole Beasley, Devin Singletary. I don't think they even roster any tight ends. So
what?
Not those.
I got Dawson Knox. I need a big game from him.
Isn't he injured?
No, he should be good to go. At least last I read. I will double check that really quick, but last I read he was fine to go. Because I need him to have a big game. He's good to go. He is good to go. So he's going to have a big game Sunday. I'm going to will that into existence because I need it to happen. I need him since George Kittle's gone down. Who you picking? I assume not the Dolphins to continue their 2-game winning streak and move to a third game winning streak? 3-game winning streak? 3-game winning streak.
Yeah, as much as I'd like to pick the Dolphins in an upset, I'm going to go with the Bills.
As am I. Next up, we've got what could be a very interesting game between the Matt's Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings getting 10.5 points in this one and being given the 79% chance to win this game. On the Vikings side here, I've lost my notes there for a second. Broncos 20th against the rush, 25th against the pass. So tough defense here. They've played really good. We know Adam Thielen will be out, which I don't necessarily think means Diggs has a big day, which might be another day, another pie bet payoff there for Mr. Tony Dyer, who took Stephon Diggs, as Chris Harris will likely match up against Diggs now the entire game, and we have seen he has given up the least amount of fantasy points than any other cornerback so far this year. That includes Stephon Gilmore. So Chris Harris has locked down the wide receivers he is on, and I would imagine he's going to be on Diggs. And we know that Cooks is obviously you have to play Cook. I know it's a bad matchup. You're playing Dalvin Cook because he's going to get a ton of catches and a ton of rushing yards as well. Outside of Cook and Diggs, are you willing to throw in Rudolph in your lineups?
No.
No. Okay.
If I'm going to start, Minnesota tight end, I'm starting Irv Smith.
Okay.
Smith has looked. He's looked good when he's out there, and they're running a lot of 12 personnel, so he's on the field, and Smith is running. I don't know if sophisticated is the right word, but Rudolph has run some very specific patterns. He runs the patterns where his job is to be tall. So, and you'll get those fluke 2 touchdown games like that. I think Smith is showing that Rudolph is probably going to have to take a pay cut on that recently signed contract next year if he wants to stay, because I think they can get out of it pretty cheaply.
Okay.
I like Irv Smith. I don't know that I'd start him in this game. Probably would if I had to. I'd feel okay about it. Is BC Johnson going to step up? There was a lot of hope for him. They've activated Josh Dotson.
Uh-huh.
So Treadwell and Dotson are their wide receivers 3 and 4 with Thielen out. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
I don't know that I'd start either one of them, but
yeah, I wouldn't start. If you had to pick one, I'd probably go Johnson. I mean, we've seen him kind of step up and have some pretty good games. Like I said, as someone who owns Diggs in a couple of leagues, I'm throwing him in my lineup because I need him, but I'm not expecting a big game out of him. Like when I saw Tony post that, I was like, all right, well, I can probably post just about anybody and not get pied in the face this week. So I'm happy about that. On Denver's side here, Minnesota, while they've been phenomenal against the rush with 28 points, but horrible against the pass. They have dropped all the way down now to 8th most points in the passing game. I still think Lindsey is a good play here. Earlier in the season, we saw Royce Freeman getting a lot of the receiving work. He's still getting a decent amount, but we've seen Lindsey is slowly kind of taking that over. He just looks like the better back. I think he's fine to play him. You likely have to just drop your expectations to probably like a middle tier RB2 this week, but he's still going to be good. But the passing game, again, it's going to be hard. It's hard for me to guess because we do know Brandon Allen's going to be out there with Joe Flacco being on IR. Drew Lock is not playing yet. But I still think you've got to at least throw Courtland Sutton out there. He's just been so good this year. And we talked about him again. I keep throwing this caveat in there. We kept talking about Courtland Sutton being the man here without Emmanuel Sanders. And then Emmanuel Sanders came back and played and Sutton was still the man. Sutton has proved that he is a legit, in my opinion, wide receiver 1 for the Broncos and for fantasy, and I think that continues today, even with Brandon Allen, on Sunday, even with Brandon Allen throwing him the ball. What about you?
Oh yeah, I'm rolling Sutton out with confidence.
Okay.
I love his game. I think he's shown that for the Broncos, he's the wide receiver you can count on. It was a little disappointing to see the way Hamilton, he kind of shrunk in the moment, didn't really step up like you would have hoped. And now he's dealing with, he tweaked his knee in practice this week, so he should play. They did activate Tim Patrick, who's flashed a couple times over the past year or so. So Patrick will be their wide receiver 3. But yeah, when it comes to Courtland Sutton, I have, especially against that Minnesota defensive backfield, I'm perfectly happy rolling him out there, and he may end up being my pie bet guy.
Oh, very nice. I like that call. I'll talk about mine because he'll be in the next game we're about to talk about here. Who are you picking to win this game?
I'm gonna go with the Vikings.
As am I. Next up, we've got the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Saints are getting 5.5 points in this one and being given the 57% chance to win this game. On the Saints side here, the Buccaneers, 31st most points against the rush, first against the pass. So you beat them through the air. We have seen that with the amount of shootouts that they have been in this year. Michael Thomas could very easily be the wide receiver 1 this week. Really, outside of Thomas and Kamara, though, that's all you're playing. And I'm worried about Kamara. He is, whether it's due to the injury or what's been going on, he has just not looked like the same player for most of the season. And a really tough matchup this week. I know he gets receiving work. Are you worried about Kamara this week against the Bucs?
No, I think that, I think Drew Brees knows how to handle the Buccaneers.
Okay.
I think that him and Peyton will develop a game plan. You didn't draft Alvin Kamara number 4 to hesitate on starting him against the Buccaneers.
Right.
So you roll him out there. You have to expect his ability as a pass catcher and as a runner is going to get him some yards. And if he gets 6 or 7 catches, he's going to get some yards, likely a touchdown. So he'll be perfectly viable in PPR leagues. Obviously Kamara drops pretty far down if you're in a standard league because he doesn't run the ball a ton. Honestly, with him and Murray, they sometimes they do hamper each other's potential a little more than it seemed that Ingram and Kamara did, but that might be just a function of the overall offensive effectiveness as opposed to the two of them.
All right, on the Buccaneers side here, the Saints, 30th most points against the rush, 11th most against the pass. However, Marshawn Lattimore is out, so that is why I'm going with my most hated player probably. Well, I mean, he's right there with Amari Cooper. They might be a virtual tie for me. But Mike Evans is who I'm picking as my pie bet winner this week. I think he is going to go off. Marshawn Lattimore has shut him down whenever they played. With Lattimore out, it looks like Eli Apple is going to be on Mike Evans, and I would not be surprised if me and you played for the Buccaneers and you or me were quarterback and the other was wide receiver, that we wouldn't be able to put up points on Eli Apple. As much as I love the former Buckeye, he has just not been good the past couple years. I think Evans is going to have a big day, as I do Godwin. I don't know why I'm going to ask you this, because I know you hate Ronald Jones with a passion. But your thoughts on Ronald Jones in this one? It is a bad matchup for him, as these Saints are one of the best teams against the rush. Do you think he has any chance to bring back any kind of fantasy value this week?
I don't. Okay. Unfortunately, I do have to start him in a game, and it's not based on opportunity.
Yeah.
He's going to get the opportunity. Maybe the pass catching is not a mirage, and maybe that does continue to grow and stay at a high level or a high volume. But against a rush defense, a stout rush defense, Jones just doesn't have good vision. And if you've got a great front and great linebackers, it's hard for him to run because he just can't see where the hole is. He just, unless it's wide open, and even then it's a 50-50 shot that he's going to see it. So he's not a great runner. He's getting volume. If he can continue to get the volume in the passing game, then maybe he's going to be serviceable this game. But I honestly, it wouldn't surprise me to see him put up a 10 for 27 game.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm going to call it right now, buddy. Maybe this will help you out. He's going to get at least 13 points in fantasy this week, I think. I think he's going to get a touchdown. Yeah. He's going to do just
I'm going to
enough
have
in the
to start him.
game.
I've got a team where I have Mixon, Jones, and Damian Williams.
Golly, yeah. Well, I mean, I'd start Mixon and Williams right now.
I've pretty much had to be. I've been starting. Well, I did. There was a time where I wasn't starting Williams, but yeah, we're at that point now where, I'm kind of rolling all three of them out there.
I got you. Yeah, I think
for the best.
I think just based on passing, they're going to be behind, so I think he's going to get a lot of passing work. I do think he scores a touchdown. I think he's going to get at least 13 points this week. Watch him get 3, but you know what? Hey, it's funny too. As someone who believes so much in Ronald Jones, I actually own 0 shares of him. Or I own 1 share of him. I take that back. I've got 1 share of one of my favorite players, Mr. Rojo. Who are you picking to win the game, the Saints or the Buccaneers?
I'm picking the Saints.
As am I. Next up, a game probably not a lot of people are watching and doesn't really have many fantasy players in it as well. The Washington Redskins and the New York Jets. Washington surprisingly getting 2.5 points in this one and being given the 57% chance to win this game, which is just amazing to me. On Washington's side, the Jets, 23rd most points against the rush, 2nd against the pass. So you beat them through the air. And as much as it pains me to admit this, I don't know if the Washington Redskins are possible of doing that with Dwayne Haskins. He has definitely looked like he's improved since what we saw the first time of him being out there, but still does not look like he's really ready for the spotlight here. We do know this is Darius Geis' first game back. I don't think you can play him if you have him. Activate him. See what happens between him and Peterson. But I would imagine it's going to be more of a 60-40 split toward Peterson at best right now. Do think you can throw McLaurin out there. Just as bad as this secondary is for the Jets, if Haskins connects with him on one play, he could be gone to the house. What are you thinking with Geis and McLaurin here for the Redskins?
I think Haskins is going to throw 3 touchdown passes.
I like it.
I think that the Jets are a team that can be had. I think Haskins, he's been treated shitty. I think he's the only quarterback I think that has been close to how Josh Rosen has been treated. He has not been put in a position to succeed. So now we're a couple weeks into, he's the starter. He's getting the reps. He's getting the practice. He's getting the game plan. He's not having to play scout team. So I think we're in a position where they're gonna, I think Callahan says, here's what he can do well. What can we do to make that work? We've got a ground game with Peterson and Geis where we can pound the ball. So it's going to be a run heavy game, but I think Haskins is going to be in a position where he's going to get to make some plays, and McLaurin is a playmaker. I think Richardson, Quinn, there's going to be some opportunity there for him to make some plays. And I think he's going to step up. He's got confidence, and he understands, I think, that it wasn't a great situation for him. And while it has only improved marginally, Callahan knows if I don't get this guy ready, I'm certainly not going to be in the running to get the job. Maybe he knows he's not in the running to get the job, and that's why he was named the interim. But Callahan wants to win. The coaches and the players want to win, even if the team wants to tank. So the Redskins aren't, they're not set up to be great, but they've got a lot of holes to fill, I guess is what I mean in that statement. And they're going against the Jets, who have a lot of holes to fill, and have a coaching staff that's, they're like aliens, I guess. I don't know if Gase and Williams really know what the hell is going on. It wouldn't surprise me if they even talk during the week. So I think Haskins is in an opportunity where he's going to be given the opportunity to make some plays. And I think if given the opportunity, he'll be able to convert some of them. So I expect Haskins to have a good game. And if he makes a couple connections early, I think that opens it up for Peterson and Geis.
Okay. On the Jet side here, the Redskins, 8th most points against the rush, 15th most against the pass, so I think Bell is good to go here. While he's not having a great year, has actually been very consistent. I think he continues to do that this week. Crowder, I think, is a good play as well, with everything we've seen from him and Sam Darnold. I forgot to mention on here, I actually think Ryan Griffin might be a good play as well with Chris Herndon being out. What are your thoughts on Herndon? And then what about Robbie Anderson as a possible sleeper in this matchup, as we've really seen him kind of fall off the map here?
Yeah, with Herndon, I was one of the people who had a ton of hope for him. I still do. I guess, him and Njoku are sort of in the same category for me right now. If I have them, I'm holding them. I'm not trying to get out of them. I expect things to be better in the future. They're both good talents at the position, athletic talents at the position. And so we'll just have to see if it pans out. They're both second, third year players at a position that takes some time to develop. Herndon's had the suspension and the injury, so there's things going on that they need to get under control, whether it's health or off field. And once Herndon gets that together, I do think that he has an opportunity to be a contributor. So I'm holding him if I have him. I might even be looking to buy cheap if I can. As far as Robbie Anderson, he's always going to be in consideration for that sort of boom bust, Deshaun Jackson kind of play, Ted Ginn kind of play. I think right now that's really all you can hope for from him. Demaryius Thomas has sort of stepped up and taken the consistent target role for the Jets and shown that he can be the more reliable guy. And I think that is something that Darnold is looking for. So there'll be shots taken with Robbie. He's got to convert them. If he doesn't convert them, he's not playing that high efficiency position in that offense. So he's going to have to convert those tough deep passes to be relevant.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Who you picking to win, the Jets or the Redskins? Probably the hardest selection of the day.
I'm taking the Redskins.
Really?
Ride with Dwayne Haskins. Yeah.
You know what? I'll do the same thing. I'd love to see Dwayne get his first win here in the NFL. Next up, we have probably what's going to be the game of the weekend between the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans. Baltimore getting 4.5 points and be given the 54% chance to win this game. For the Ravens, the Texans defense, 25th most points against the rush, 4th against the pass. So the way to beat him is through the air, and I'm very interested to see if Houston can. I do think they will slow down Mark Ingram, but can they slow down Lamar Jackson enough to get him to throw the ball? And if he does do that, do you trust anybody in this passing game? Because for me, the only person I'm plugging in and feeling perfectly fine about that is Mark Andrews.
Yeah, Andrews is the play on a weekly basis for the Ravens when it comes to the passing game. If Marquise plays, then I think you can throw him out there with some hope. He definitely is a guy that can make some plays and has Lamar Jackson's confidence. But I think we're another 8 or 10 games away from seeing how teams adjust to Lamar Jackson and how he adjusts back. They're starting to, I think they're starting to try and figure out, well, how do we contain him so he's not running? And to do that, then you're going to need, you need cornerbacks that can handle one-on-one coverage, because you've got to keep guys up front to keep him from getting out of the pocket and running. It's hard to do right now because Jackson is a dynamic runner, and when he gets in traffic, he's still a dynamic runner and he can escape pressure. So I'm going to be interested to see. I think it's going to be tough for the Texans since they've lost J.J. Watt. I don't care how good your backup is. If you're backing up, if you're a backup, you're still a backup. J.J. Watt is one of the best defensive linemen in the game, and whoever replaces him is not going to be at the level that J.J. Watt was. Yeah. So it's going to be a challenge for the Texans. They're going to have to play the game of their life against the Ravens. And unfortunately, right now, the Ravens run an offense that's a unicorn. And so it's hard to prepare for. You don't see it. Everything about preparing for it is special because of what the quarterback can do.
Yeah, on the Texans side here, the Ravens 10th most points against the rush, 20th against the pass. So the way to beat them is on the ground. However, I think Duke Johnson might actually be the running back to play here, as you just talked about. The Ravens are playing a very good, they're playing a high level of offense right now, and they're likely going to put up points, which likely leans more toward the Duke Johnson game here. He has been getting a lot more checkdowns of late and been more relevant in the receiving game, which is a little bit confusing, especially with the guy like Kiki Kuti they have, who's just been riding the bench for him this season for some reason. I guess he probably said the wrong thing to Bill O'Brien's daughter or something, because it has just not been good for Kiki Kuti. So I think Johnson's actually the running back to play here for them. Hopkins good to go. Fuller seems to be a game time decision. I'm not going to lie, if Fuller plays, I think that might hurt Hopkins a little bit, as Hopkins really seems to ball out when Fuller is not out there. What are your thoughts on the Johnson-Hyde dilemma here?
I think you can comfortably start both of them as flex plays. Carlos Hyde is 10th in the league in rushing. So he's averaging 4.7 yards per carry, has 3 touchdowns in the rushing game. So they like what he brings to the table. And if you're playing a softer rush defense, are you going to use Duke Johnson or are you going to use Carlos Hyde? Which one's the better runner? Duke is a great pass catcher and an okay runner. Hyde is a good runner and an okay pass catcher. I do think there's some overlap in their games, but definitely one is a better receiver and one is a better runner. So I think if you have them, you roll both of them out there as low end flex plays.
Okay.
Duke, I think Duke is starting to gain the confidence of Deshaun Watson. Watson notoriously has been the guy who throws the least amount of passes to his running backs, which is easy to see, I guess, if you've got, DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller. Right. I probably wouldn't be looking to throw to my backs either. But Duke is gaining the confidence from Deshaun Watson, and so they're not afraid to get the ball to him in the passing game and let him make some plays. So I definitely think it's a Hopkins game.
Yeah. I hope so. I really do hope so. Who are you picking to win, the Ravens or the Texans?
I'm going to go with the Ravens.
I'm going with the Texans. I think it's going to be a great game between these two. I think Texans just barely pull off the win in this one. Next up, Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are getting 10 points and the 85% chance to win this one. On the 49ers side here, I mean, Cardinals 12th and literally numbered 12 against the rush and the pass here, yet I really think it's just Tevin Coleman and your guy Deebo Samuel, especially if we are going to see Emmanuel Sanders out in this one. Even if Emmanuel Sanders is in, Samuel has really kind of stepped up here the past couple weeks. I take that back. If Sanders is playing, I would feel okay putting Sanders in my lineup. If not, it's just Coleman and Samuel for me. What about you in this 49ers offense?
Well, I think Ross Dwelly is a guy you'd want to play too.
Okay.
If Kittle is out,
I'd imagine he's out. From everything I've read, it looks like there's no way he's playing this weekend.
So Dwelly is playing well, and while he's no George Kittle, I think Jimmy Garoppolo has confidence in his ability. And Kyle Shanahan has confidence in his ability, so they aren't afraid to throw the ball to him. And against a notoriously bad versus the tight end team, I think you've got to put him in there and hope that the matchup play lives up to its hype. If Coleman is playing, it's hard to trust him for high level numbers when all those backs are so interchangeable. So what, is Mostert out? Or is Breida out?
Breida, I believe, is out. I don't know about Mostert.
So when Jeff Wilson is active, once they get inside the 10, it's Jeff Wilson time for some reason.
That's true.
It's just crazy. Wilson is one of those guys that, he'll give you one of those 5 rushes for 4 yards and 2 touchdown stat lines, and it's just crazy because he's not as big as Coleman is. So I don't know, man. I'll start Coleman regardless because he's the lead back there, but anybody else, I think you have to kind of look at him as a low end flex play. Whether it's Breida or Mostert or Wilson, whichever one is in there, then you kind of just take a look at it and hope they get enough touches to score you, 6 to 10 to 12 or 15 points, depending on what the touchdown upside is. Wide receiver wise, without it's certainly not going to be Dante Pettis. We know that.
Yeah, unfortunately. All the love for Dante Pettis earlier in the season, and it has all come crashing down on him this year. Let's see here on the, I forgot who we're talking about here, the Cardinals side. 49ers, 29th really fewest against the rush and 28th against the pass. They've been phenomenal defense. We all know that. So I pretty much, for me, means you're not starting any Cardinals. We don't know what's going to go on with DJ and Drake. I love Christian Kirk, but that means he's likely going to be the focal point of that San Francisco 49ers secondary this week, so I'm not starting any Cardinals. What are you doing with this Cardinals offense?
They're desperation plays at best. Probably honestly, the guy that I would start with the most confidence in Arizona, and this is going to be a huge shock to you, is Andy Isabella.
Okay. Why?
And because it's going to be the way I see it playing out is Kyler Murray's running for his life, and Andy Isabella is fast. And it's, I'm running and I'm Murray. I'm running to save my life. Isabella's getting behind the defense, and I'm just chucking it out there. It's the Hail Maryest of Hail Mary plays. If I'm looking at my last flex spot and I'm looking at somebody that has a 10-point ceiling and an 8-point floor, or Andy Isabella, I'm going to throw Isabella out there on the hopes that he catches 2 50-yard touchdown passes or a 70 or 80-yard touchdown pass and just, throw it up to the fantasy football gods.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Who are you picking to win this game? I imagine the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I figured both of us taking the 49ers. All right, next up. Bengals and the Oakland. Oh, I don't know why I was about to say the Oakland Ravens. The Oakland Raiders. Oakland getting 11.5 points in this one. 84% chance to win this game. The Raiders side of things here, they are 13th most against the rush, 3rd against the pass. So the way to beat him is through the passing game. I still think you can start Mixon here. He's had a couple of good games now. I think that continues. Again, not a great rush defense, but still they're right below middle of the pack, so I think he'll be all right, especially with the passing work we've seen him get lately. We know Finley will be in at quarterback. I actually think both Tyler Boyd and Auden Tate could have good games here against this Oakland defense. And then if you really need a tight end flyer, Tyler Eifert. What do you think, or what are you doing with the Bengals if you own any of them?
Mixon is definitely somebody that I'm rolling out. I think he's starting to get he's starting to fit into the game plan better. I think Taylor is starting to scheme ways to get him some space despite the poor offensive line. So for me, if I have Mixon on my team, it's because I drafted him high, and I probably don't have anybody with the kind of upside he has as a replacement. So, if my choice is Joe Mixon or, gosh, I don't even know. Can't even think of anybody Mixon's probably
what about
RB2,
Mixon or Mixon or Gurley? Who you starting?
Man, that's a tough one. Honestly, I think I'd start Mixon just because I've lost. Well, I was one of the guys who felt that the load management issue wouldn't hamper Gurley's production. I was wrong in part just because I think the Rams offense in general has just sucked. So, and that's really been that's hampered Gurley's ability to be effective in limited touches. I'd go Mixon.
I'll give you two more. They're all right around each other right now. Mixon or Carlos Hyde?
I think I'd go Mixon.
And then
I have more confidence Mixon is going to get more touches and be involved in both the running and passing game.
All right. So I'm glad that you brought that up because that leads right into my last guy who will be involved in both as well. Mixon or Ronald Jones?
I'm going to go Mixon in part. Let me see. In part because of the matchup.
Fair enough. That's where I thought you'd go. I was just trying to give you a couple guys that were right there. I mean, Todd Gurley's got a little bit more points than them, but all three of those guys are all pretty fairly ranked right now with their points on the season. So that's what I wanted to give you. Please continue now on your analysis of the Cincinnati Bengals if you had anything else you wanted to say.
Yeah, well, no, I agree with you on Boyd and Tate. I don't think we have enough information on Finley yet to determine, how well can he support that passing game or those wide receivers. I got to think that there's probably 25 tight ends I'd start over Eifert, maybe 29 or 30. I just don't have any faith that he's going to get anything done. He just hasn't. He's not the same. The touchdown upside that I think keeps him in the talk as a starter just isn't there anymore.
Okay.
And it's hard to roll him out there. If you're rolling Eifert out there, you're hoping for a 3 for 11 and a touchdown type of game.
Yeah, that's probably.
I think. Finley isn't known for having the strongest arm. So for me, it kind of comes, Boyd and Tate are both kind of intermediate threats. So they could both do well. The guy that I'd kind of be taking a look at though would be Erickson from the slot.
Okay.
So it's definitely an opportunity for him to have one of those big target games, but probably not for a lot of yardage. So I don't feel good about any of the Cincinnati pass catchers this week. I mean, they're going to throw the ball, and somebody has to catch it. But it's like throwing darts to figure out who it's going to be.
Yeah. On the Raiders side, Bengals 4th most points against the rush, 19th against the pass. So Jacobs looks like he's in for another big day here. Outside of him, I'm honestly not trusting anybody else on this offense. A lot of people love Darren Waller. He has really kind of fallen off a cliff here the past 4 or 5 weeks. Tyrell Williams, same, dealing with that injury. Hunter Renfro's had a couple good games here, but I personally cannot trust anybody outside of Jacobs. What would you do with Oakland if you had any of their players?
Well, I think you're starting Waller if you have him. He's fallen off. In part, some of it has been volume. So as the offense has played better, and Tyrell Williams has started to get healthy, they've brought in a couple other wide receivers to improve the passing game a little bit. They don't have to target Waller 20 times a game. So his efficiency based on volume is sort of one of those things you have to see. Is he going to get 7 or 8 targets? I feel pretty confident he's going to have enough targets to produce. It's just going to come down to is he going to catch him and can he get in the end zone? So I'm comfortable starting Waller. I was hoping that there'd be a Zay Jones wide receiver 2 resurgence out in Oakland, but it looks like he's fallen into the old better NFL player in the game as opposed to fantasy player. So
right.
Williams is, if you start Williams, you're hoping for a big play to get you into the end zone. He's the number 1 there.
Yeah.
And if you start Renfro, you're hoping for that slot guy, high volume kind of day. I think against the Bengals, any of the 3 of them, Waller, Williams, or Renfro, could have it. Two of the 3 of them could have good games. You just have to hope you don't pick the 3rd one when you're doing your lineup.
Yeah. Who are you picking to win, the Bengals or the Raiders?
Raiders.
As am I. Next up, probably the best early afternoon game here, the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots. New England getting 4 points in this one. Oh, my goodness, sorry. And being given the 62% chance to win this game. We'll start with New England's side here because obviously some news came out yesterday for the Eagles, so we'll touch on that in a minute. Eagles 26 most points against the rush, 6 against the pass, so you're beating them through the air. Edelman and White are really the only for sure plays for me. Sanu, I think's got flex-worthy upside, but I'm not as sold on him in this offense as others. Sony Michel is an interesting one for me because I could very easily see the Patriots getting up in this one and then using Sony to run out the clock, but that is the only reason I'd play him. Personally, as someone who owns him in a couple leagues, I am not playing him. If you can find someone to play over him, I would, because usually if it's a close game or if they're trying to get back in it, it's the James White show. What are you doing here with Michel and Sanu for the Patriots?
I like Sanu. While the Eagles' defensive backs have played well since they've gotten a couple guys back, they're playing better. I do like Sanu. I think he's going to have a productive day, so I'm okay starting him as my wide receiver 3. I don't know if you go past that. Jacoby Myers will probably catch a pass or 2 in a big moment that'll make it seem like he's producing more than he is. N'Keal Harris could potentially make his debut. Dorsett, you could be in for a big, long touchdown to Dorsett or something. So it's going to be a crapshoot after, I think after, Edelman and Sanu. I'm comfortable with what I expect their production to be, which is, Edelman, the 11 catches for 95 yards, and Sanu, 6 or 7 for 80 yards. Michel, the only issue I have with Michel is that they're not giving him the ball inside the 10. And, they need to, I don't know why, maybe Brandon Bolden is more explosive, I guess. But if that's the case, then why don't you play Bolden over Michel? I don't know. If he's explosive inside the 10, I imagine he's explosive between the 20s. So, it just is frustrating as a Michel owner to watch him, gain 50 yards on a drive, on an 80-yard drive, and then they get inside the 10 and they rush it 3 times with Brandon Bolden.
Yeah, trust me, been there all year as well myself. On the Eagles side here, Jordan Howard came up with a shoulder injury here, and the Eagles have decided to re-sign Jay Ajayi as he was with the team last year. I think that's probably worse news for Jordan Howard owners. That means, for my opinion, he's likely going to be out for a couple weeks. We do know Darren Sproles also went on IR, so he is done. I actually think this is really good news for Miles Sanders, and I've got him fired up here with Zach Ertz. Sanders has been really good in the receiving game and has broken off a couple big runs, but was not really getting a lot of volume in the running game. It was going to Howard. I don't think with Jay Ajayi just joining the team now, they're going to rely on him a lot in this one. So I think it's going to be a lot of Miles Sanders in this game. And then outside of Ertz, though, I don't trust anybody else. I know Alshon Jeffrey could have a good game, did have a good game against the Patriots in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Well, and it was against Stephon Gilmore as well, but just with the way this defense has been playing, I don't trust any of these other weapons for the Eagles outside of Sanders and Ertz. What about you?
Well, the trouble with Ertz is if you subscribe to the Belichick philosophy that he's going to take away your best weapon and make you beat him with something else, that's Ertz. So Ertz could be locked up, and that means that Goddard or Hollins, Sanders, they're the ones that are going to have to beat you. Nelson Aguilar. I can just see Bill Belichick, drinking that orange juice and grinning at the thought of having to make the Eagles rely on Nelson Aguilar to be the one to beat them. So, it's going to – I think Belichick's defense is going to put Miles Sanders in a position that Carson Wentz is getting hit because Sanders doesn't know where the blitz is coming from. And that's going to put Sanders on the sideline. That's my concern.
Okay.
It's if they blitz a couple times and Sanders blows the blitz pickup, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to put somebody in that they are confident can pick that blitz up and see where it's coming from. That would be the only concern. I agree that it sets up to be a game where Sanders should be able to get some yards and produce, but I think it's going to come down to being able to protect the quarterback.
All right. Fair enough.
I feel like it's a Dallas Goedert game, not a Zach Ertz game.
Okay. Well, hey, I wouldn't be too mad about that either, as I'm firing him up as a tight end in one of my leagues this week, again, because of a George Kittle injury. Who are you picking to win the game, though, the Patriots or the Eagles?
Well, I think, we're looking at a revenge narrative here. And so that aside, I'm going to go with the Patriots.
All right, as am I. Sunday night game. We got the Chicago Bears and the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are getting 6.5 points in this one and being given the 68% chance to win this game. On the Rams side here, the Bears, 14th most against the rush, 19th against the pass. For me, Gurley still continues to bring that low-end 2 RB value. Unless he scores a touchdown, he's just not going to do it for you here. Interested to get your thoughts on the 3 main targets, though, in Woods, Kupp, and Everett. They're playing a very good secondary here. How comfortable are you firing up any of those 3?
Well, they're playing at home, so Goff is going to play better. McVay, well, I've said a lot today. That's annoying the shit out of me.
That's all right.
McVay is he hasn't adjusted well this year to the NFL figuring out his offense. So whether he decides to do it in season and figure it out, I don't know. The Bears defense isn't what we thought it was going to be. And while their defensive backfield is playing pretty good, Woods and Kupp are both pretty decent plays along with Josh Reynolds. I definitely like Kupp. Kupp is going to get the targets. I don't think he's going to get shut out again. So I'm pretty comfortable starting Kupp. Woods is going to be, a flex guy for me. But Gerald Everett, I think he's gotten to the point now where you can comfortably start him as a top 15 tight end. The one adjustment, I guess, that McVay has made is that he is incorporating his athletic tight end into the game plan.
Yeah, I would. For me, I do think Kupp has a bounce back game here. I'm hoping Woods does because I'm playing him. I'm torn on Everett. I've not necessarily believed in him most of the year. He's had a couple bad games, but then again looked good last week. So I would agree with you. If they can incorporate him more into the game plan, I think he's going to be fine. If you've got him, you're likely starting him. He's still a top 12 tight end. And as we've seemed to talk about the last couple years at least, the tight end landscape here is just bad. It's just bad. So you're playing anybody you think can get some points. On the Bears side here, the Rams, 21st most points against the rush, 23rd against the pass. So for me, we know David Montgomery is beat up in this one. I'm not sure if he's even going to play. So for me, it's just Allen Robinson. I don't know if you... Personally, I'm not playing anybody else outside of A-Rob. What about you for the Bears?
Mitch Trubisky makes it hard to play anybody besides A-Rob.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, it's easy to pivot off of Montgomery to Tariq Cohen. I think Cohen probably, if Montgomery is limited, because his snaps are limited because he's dinged up, I think Cohen will be the beneficiary. And while Cohen isn't going to get Montgomery's carries, he'll get some targets in the passing game to probably make him viable. I thought this was going to be an Anthony Miller year. Thought Miller was going to break out. I felt very confident in Allen Robinson. Mitch just didn't take that next step to make a second receiver viable on any kind of consistent basis. So I agree that really it's Allen Robinson and, maybe Ben Broniker. I don't know. Don't start Ben Broniker.
Yeah, don't. Please don't. Please don't. We do not advocate here on the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast to start him. Now, who are you picking to win the game, the Bears or the Rams?
I'm going to take the Rams.
As am I. And finally, the last game on the docket here, which will end the Week 11 game, my goodness. End the Week 11 games here in the NFL, which is just honestly kind of sad that we're already this close to the end of the season. The Chiefs and the Chargers in Mexico City. Kansas City is getting 4 points and being given the 73% chance to win this game. The Chargers, 7th most points against the rush, 27th most against the pass. So you're beating them on the ground. You talked about having Damian Williams on your team earlier. I think he's got a really good matchup here, so you feel comfortable playing him against the Chargers.
My concern with Damian Williams is LaShawn McCoy getting back in Andy Reid's good graces. Mm-hmm. McCoy hasn't looked great this year, but that doesn't mean that Andy Reid out of the blue won't give him 15 carries. But to give you a short answer, yes, I'm comfortable starting Damian Williams here.
All right, fair enough. And then outside of him, I think for me at least, it's just Tyreek Hill and Kelsey. What about you? I know some people will make an argument for Mecole Hardman, but I feel like while he does obviously, he's very boom bust. I personally would rather just leave him on my bench because I think he's going to bust more than boom. But what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think, Hardman, I wasn't on Hardman when they drafted him. I wasn't drafting him in rookie drafts. I don't think he's, he's had some flash plays. I don't know that he's going to ever have the type of consistency that Tyreek Hill does. And so I'm not starting him. He is boomer bust. He's every bit as boomer bust as Sammy Watkins or Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah,
you just don't know. It's Hill and Kelsey, and let's have a lottery to see which one of those other three are going to get some play this week.
All right, I completely agree with that. Actually, I didn't even think about putting Robinson and Watkins in there. That's a good call by you with the boom bust potential there. On the Chiefs side, the Chargers are, we just talked about the Chiefs, my goodness. The Chargers side, the Chiefs, number 1 most points against the rush, 26th against the pass. So Gordon looks like he is in for a big day here. Obviously had a really good game last week as well. I still think Eckler is a solid play with the amount of passing work he's still getting. But what about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams for you? I know we were both on the opposite ends of that at the beginning of the year. I thought Keenan Allen would have a good year. You were on Mike Williams, and neither one has really been good at all this season. How do you feel about starting these guys in Mexico against a defense that's been much better against the pass this year?
I like both of them. You have to sort of temper your expectations on what they're going to produce. Keenan Allen is a dog. He fights. He's going to get you, 9 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. If he gets, he can get shut down by a great cornerback. It is what it is. You have to live with that. Every big time player has a game where they get shut down or things just don't go their way. I attribute Allen and Williams not meeting our expectations to Phillip Rivers.
Uh-huh.
He just hasn't had as good a year, and there's not much you can do about that other than hope the offensive line steps up. They've had 3 starting offensive linemen miss significant time, I believe, this year, and when that happens, it's a tough situation. But everybody has to deal with injuries. So I like Williams and Allen. Williams plays the deep threat outside low percentage throw game. And if you're starting a guy that plays that game, you have to live with, those 5 target, 2 catch, 17-yard games. It just is it's part of the deal. We draft these players. We have an idea who we think they are. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. Williams is a big play, red zone threat, get down the field, out-muscle his defensive back, make tough catches, high point the ball guy. Allen is a great route runner, intermediate play. If he gets behind you, he's going to be hard to catch. Gets by with a lot of volume. That's just who they are. I think that's who they'll continue to be. I'm perfectly comfortable starting both of them.
All right. I like it. Who you picking to win the game, though? The Chargers or the Chiefs?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs.
As am I. So before we cut out of here...
I just can't go against Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Before we cut out of here, let's talk about the pie bet. So you kind of brought us into this against the Fantasy Alarm show on SiriusXM last week. I have to toot my own horn here. Pick Christian Kirk was the best wide receiver on the week last week. You're welcome, America. I thought that was a very good call. A little bit worried about my call this week and picking Mike Evans. I don't know if he finishes wide receiver 1. I just need him to outscore Stephon Diggs, who Tony has picked. Who lost the pie bet last week. You took Marvin Jones. He took Emmanuel Sanders. Marvin Jones just barely outscored Emmanuel Sanders. I feel like you should probably be thanking the football gods a little bit in that one since Sanders got hurt, because I think he only outscored him by like half a point or something like that, right?
0.3.
So had he not gotten hurt, you were probably going to be the one posting the video last week on the pie. So we know who who Tony picked in Diggs. I have picked Mike Evans. Who are you taking for your pie bet this week?
Well, I'm going to take a guy that I just talked about having getting a high volume of targets. I'm going with Keenan Allen.
Okay.
So it's in the roundtable bet so far. It's Diggs versus Evans versus Keenan Allen.
Yes.
So the fantasy alarm guys. So Howard picked Michael Thomas. Justin Fensterman picked Tyreek Hill. Jim Bowden picked DeAndre Hopkins. And Anish Darby picked Chris Godwin. So it's a double pie thing. So we have to beat the lowest score of them as well as beat the lowest score amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough. I think it might be you. I think this is going to be one of those Chris Godwin weeks, and Mike Evans has one of those, 30-yard game kind of things. You might be in for a tough one.
I hope not. That's why I said when I posted, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here because we all know how much I hate Mike Evans. And watch, my hate for Mike Evans is going to grow a whole lot more if I end up getting pied in the face this week. I'm just going to admit that right now.
Matt?
So, yeah.
Meet my friend Karma.
Yeah.
Karma, meet my friend Matt.
I know. It's going to be bad. Hey, buddy.
So, and the charity that this raises money for, it's the Children's Fund.
Yes.
And you can find that on Twitter at children's_fund. And it helps to raise money for underprivileged children that are in difficult situations that need help. And it's a great cause.
Yeah, we're glad to have jumped on here and just be a part of it and get the notice and everything out there. And I'm really hoping and excited to see you or Tony posting videos this week of getting pied in the face and not me. Because my wife I already know is going to very much enjoy it if I do, because she was kind of hoping I would have lost last week to do it. So we'll see what happens. I can't wait to see who wins. I'm sure will be a lot more trash talking and everything going on in our group chat, depending on who. I'm just telling you right now, if Mike Evans loses me this bet, Monday's podcast is not going to be pretty. That's just the way I'll put it. But Dennis, have a good weekend, buddy. I'm glad we got a chance to do this show with the stuff we both had going on Friday. We're able to connect this morning and get it done. Enjoy the Buckeye game today. Enjoy your weekend. Hope you win all of your matchups, because I don't think we're playing each other in any leagues this week. And I look forward to talking to you again next week.
Right on.
Prepare for glory! I want to know if you got your popcorn ready. If you got your popcorn ready. I came out the womb, I was ready.
And he's hit the end zone for an unbelievable touchdown.
I would be honored if you played football for this team.
Throw it up above his head. They can't jump with me. Golly. Oh, they tackle him at the 40-yard line.
Who can make a play? I can. Who can make a play? I can.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And now, a thought from Geico Motorcycle.
It took 15 minutes to take a spirit animal quiz online.
Please be the cheetah. Please be the cheetah.
And learn your animal isn't the cheetah, but the far less appealing blobfish.
Oh, come on.
To add insult to injury, you could have used those 15 blobfish minutes to switch your motorcycle insurance to Geico.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.